working as a paralegal for about 16 years now. I've worked at large litigation law firms. So I've done a lot of tort work, which is suing. I've been involved in a lot of really interesting cases in my work with lawyers. So I've worked on with the residential school litigation. I've worked on sexual assault cases, a lot of car accidents, some really interesting scenarios. So about 5 years ago, I actually left working with a lawyer and started practicing on my own as a paralegal. So paralegals are a little bit different from lawyers in that our scope is limited. So there are certain things we can do. The law society says, here is the list of things that you are allowed to do. You can practice on your own so long as you're staying within that scope of practice. So we as paralegals, Ivan's asked me to talk about contracts. And what I said was, well, I can't draft a contract as a paralegal. So that's not within our scope of practice. But what I do a lot of with contracts is litigating around them. So when the contract goes south, you can come to me, and if it's within the small claims court purview, then I can litigate on those contracts. In addition to practicing as a paralegal, I also teach the paralegal program at Trios College in Hamilton. So, I teach them their contract course. We just finished that up about 6 weeks ago. So I'm quite intimately familiar with contracts. In my sort of side life, I also manage a riding school, so horseback riding school. I'm an avid horseback rider. So I have a lot of involvement in drafting, although not in my role as a paralegal. In my role as the manager, I draft a lot of our contracts for the riding school. So, the buying and selling of horses, our waivers and liabilities, and all of those fun things. So I like to think, I have this little niche, worked in the legal field for many, many years in many different capacities, but always in litigation. So you want to sue someone, I'm your person. I can tell you a lot about that. And we do see a lot of litigation around contracts. And that's what I had sort of said when Ivan had reached out to me was, certainly if you have a contract you want to sue on, I can take a look at that. Certainly I can read and then I can interpret contracts and sort of give you your advice from there. Is this a good contract? Is this a well-written contract? Is this a crappy contract? Are there holes? Are there loopholes? So that's always what I'm sort of looking at when I'm drafting my own contracts. As I said, for example, the buying and selling of horses, there's a lot of little nuances that you want to put in there. And then, in my interpretation of contracts, a lot of times I'm looking at, for example, long-term disability contracts. Extended healthcare benefit contracts, credit card contracts. So a lot of people don't realize what they're signing when they sign on that dotted line. People generally don't read what they're signing. And in the real world, most people who come into my office, I say, well, did you read it before you signed it? And they're like, no, why would I do that? Just signed on the dotted line. Employment contracts. That's another area of law that we practice in. So, you've got an employment contract, you've been terminated or something has gone wrong with your employment and you're coming into my office and saying, hey, can they do this to me? So I've done a lot of work around the interpretation of contracts. Automobile insurance contracts. I do a lot of car accidents. So what did you purchase when you purchased your auto insurance? So there's always a lot of questions around contracts that come up in my practice. So I sort of wanted to talk to you guys. I thought I would kind of approach it from the risk management side. So why do you want a contract? What does a good contract protect you from? And what does a bad contract open you up to? So that was sort of where I thought I would start. And obviously, if you guys have any specific areas that you want me to talk about or any specific questions, I'm happy to address that. But that was kind of how I had planned my talk, because as I said, as paralegals, we can't draft contracts. So I couldn't have you come into my office and say, hey, let me draft your employment contract for you. But certainly, if you've got an employee who is suing you, you could come to me and say, hey, here's the contract they signed. Am I protected? And I can then give you advice on that contract. So it's a little funny how they've got that scope of practice set up, right? I can read and interpret a contract. I can give you advice on an existing contract, but I cannot draft a contract for you. So any questions so far?
I'm shocked that I did not know that paralegals could actually go into court.
Yeah, absolutely. So small claims court. I do. I don't love showing up at small claims court and conducting trials. personally, it's not my niche. I have another paralegal here at the firm who loves to go to court. I do mostly tribunal work, which is really just mini trials. So I do a lot of WSIB, a lot of car accidents, a lot of CPP disability. So that sort of is where I've focused my practice at this time in my life. I have gone to court for many years. That was sort of I was in the court, in the hallways. And I've sort of semi-retired from that. So I like the desk work now. I like to stay in my nice cozy office and read the contracts. And yeah, it's always interesting because I'm sort of training this next generation of paralegals that are coming out. So myself and my partner here at Prashad, we were both trained by lawyers. So we kind of grew up in a different world where paralegals didn't work on their own. Paralegals worked with lawyers. So that was how we were trained and how we were brought on. So we really conduct ourselves in our practice very much like lawyers do. Whereas this kind of new generation of paralegals, they have no contact with lawyers. They don't work under lawyers. So they have a sort of different, I almost want to say moral compass in sort of how they're raised because they don't have that mentorship where we spent probably 15 years working with lawyers and under lawyers. So I like to think we're a little bit different than a lot of the paralegal firms that you see out there because we've got that background. So why do you want to have a contract? Why do you want to have a good contract? Well, at the end of the day, the interpretation of a contract is going to be up to the courts, right? So you draft a contract, you have somebody sign it. That's great. You think that you have an agreement. You know, we call it in law, we call it a meeting of the minds. So there can be no contract if there isn't a meeting of the minds. So you offer someone something, they offer you something in return. So another part of a contract is there must be consideration. So there has to be an exchange of something in order for it to be valid and enforceable by the courts. It doesn't have to be money. It can be the promise to do something, but there must be that exchange. So you're getting something, they're getting something. It has to be mutually beneficial. The courts will generally not involve themselves in whether you made a good deal or not. So unless there is unfair bargaining power, so you're dealing with someone, for example, who has a mental disability, or someone who is, we think Alzheimer's or dementia. So we want to be really careful with the elderly, right, in dealing with them. Minors cannot enter into contracts. But generally speaking, if there are two people who are of sound and average mind, the courts will not be concerned that Ivan made himself a bad deal. Right? So they won't get involved in general in the bargaining process. They'll say, hey, you guys made a deal. The deal is the deal. But they will get involved in saying, is the contract valid and enforceable? And what was the intention of the parties? So often when we get into disputes over contracts, it's because party A says that's not what I agreed to. And party B says, yes, it is. And then we start looking at the language of the contract. Is it ambiguous? So yes, if you look at, for example, a contract for long-term disability benefits or short-term disability benefits, and you start reading through that 30-page contract, you will find a lot of things that you may not have known that you were agreeing to or that were caveats on your coverage. So being able to sort of read and interpret a contract is a skill in and of itself. They're often written very ambiguously. They use a lot of legal jargon. And it's funny, it kind of reminds me of a story. It was about a year ago. There was a lady who was paid out, I think it was $100,000. And it was a contract. It was in the States. And it said it was at the end of the contract. So if you've read this whole contract, call this phone number and we'll pay you X amount of dollars. It was an obscene amount of money. And it had been sitting there for 20 years and nobody had ever read it. And she called and she got the money. You can Google it. It's a real news story. That's how often people don't read these contracts. Contracts can govern all kinds of things though. So let's say you have an employment contract and you don't want your employee to be able to sue you. Cool. Can you put that in your contract? Absolutely. The method of dispute resolution can be written right into the contract. So you see that with a lot of, for example, security firms that work in foreign countries. They'll often say if there's any dispute on this employment contract, you must proceed through a neutral arbitration. So that means there can be no litigation. You have signed away your litigation and you're saying we will agree that if we just have a dispute about this contract, we're going to go to arbitration. So there's all kinds of things that you can contract into an employment agreement, for example, with respect to how it will be resolved. What province will the issue be resolved in? What about any misunderstanding? So you can actually write this all right into your contract. And I always encourage people, and you know what I had said to Ivan is, if you want a good rock solid contract, you go to a lawyer who specializes in contracts and you have that contract drafted by a lawyer. You pay the money and you get a good contract drafted that you can then use going forward, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how you're going to have this kind of ironclad agreement that is really going to protect you. So you want to make sure, again, that the parties you have that meeting of the minds, that they understand what they're agreeing to, the person who's signing, and that you understand what they're agreeing to as well. Always take a moment whenever anybody's signing a contract. I don't like them to be signed in my office. So if I have a retainer agreement, for example, so someone agrees to hire me, that's a contract. It's nothing more and nothing less than a contract to say, hey, I agree to hire you. I agree to pay you. I agree. And I have my contract, my retainer agreement is about 4 pages long, and it goes through and it sort of sets out, this is the terms of what we're agreeing to. This is how I'm going to get paid. This is when I'm going to get paid. This is what you're going to do. So I like to set the expectations. And anytime someone's signing a contract, you want to give them the opportunity to get independent legal advice, because the problem is people just sign, right? And then they come to the courts and they say, poor innocent me, I was just the employee here, and I was under a high pressure situation, and I just signed without reading, and the judge says, oh, the poor little duckling needs some extra, right? Don't underestimate the sympathy card. Like, don't underestimate it, because when you go to court, and I tell my clients this, when you end up in court, you are going to appear before a judge, one of many judges, and every judge has a different approach, has a different attitude, has a higher or lower sympathy level. So it's always a gamble. If you're appearing before a judge, there is no guarantee that you're going to get. You could have a rock solid case and say, I don't like your client. Like, I don't like him. I don't like the way he presents. I don't like the way he talks. I think he's a liar. I don't like him. So, you always want to kind of protect yourself from ending up in that position. So when I have people sign the retainer agreement, what I like to do is say, here it is. We'll review it. I want you to take it home, and I want you to read it over, and I want you to call me with any questions. So I don't want people to be able to say, I was in her office. She said she could help me, and she just threw this paper in front of me and told me to initial the pages. And I didn't even have a chance to read it. And I didn't understand what I was signing. I had no idea. So my retainer is generally on a contingency basis, right? So we represent people. They don't have to pay us anything up front, and we take a percentage of their settlement. I'm always very careful to go over this with people, because when they get their check and they have to pay me 30% of their settlement, they go, what? It's always a shock to them. So, and my contract has sort of, it's a living document. So as I have run into problems, I've sort of modified it. So now I have, right beside that 30%, I have them initial. That's something I added in after years of practice, because of the what moments that people would have. So I say, you know what? We're going to initial right here beside those numbers, so that you can't say, I didn't see that, or you just slid that in there. Another thing that I put in my contract, because it's important to me, a lot of my clients, they think once they sign this that their doctor's going to start talking to me. Like, he's just going to call me and give me, oh, hey, Susie was in today, and, we had a good talk, and I put her on a new, that's not how it works. So I've written into my contract, you are obligated to keep me up to date. That is your job as the client. So yes, I have a job as your representative, but you have a job as the client. You don't get to just sort of sit on your laurels. You have a job as a client, and here are your obligations under this contract. And they're really set out in plain language, because at the end of the day, if your contract is unreadable to the average person, the chances are it's going to be unenforceable against that average person, because they're going to say, I had no idea. Like, I had no idea I was signing away my right to sue this person. So giving people the time to read the contract. So yes, it's having a well-drafted contract written in like plain language. We call in the legal industry, it's the plain language movement. So, many years ago, lawyers would you would retain a lawyer. They would write you a letter. You would get the letter, you would read it, and you would go, I don't understand what this letter says. Herefore, to, with, and we would use all these complicated words that the average person would look at it and go, I don't understand. So in the legal field, we've started this plain language movement, and judges more and more are saying, just write to me like I'm a person. You don't need to use all this legal mumbo jumbo. Just write to me as I'm a person. And I teach my students in the same way. Write to your clients like they're a person, just your average everyday person, so that they can understand it. So the courts are always going to give weight to, could that person understand what they were signing? And were they given the opportunity to take it and get that independent legal advice? So if you don't like my contract, you don't like my retainer agreement, great. You don't have to sign it. You don't have to retain me. You can go shop around and try to find someone with a lower contingency rate. All the power to you. So I'm always very careful that I don't pressure people into signing that agreement while we're sitting, right here, here's your pen. And I always make sure that I kind of read it over with them. So we're going through, there's, I want to say 14 paragraphs. We're going through each paragraph. What does this mean? Do you have any questions? Do you understand? So when you're looking at it in terms of an employment contract, it's the same thing. You want to make sure that that employee that you're potentially hiring understands what they're signing. Why do you want to have an employment contract? Well, as much as we want to think that everything with our employees is good on a handshake and, everything's going to be hunky-dory and sunshine and lollipops, it often isn't. A contract protects you. It makes things easier in hiring and in firing. It sets out the process and it makes it clear. And it makes it so that if your employee is going to sue you, so they're going to say, hey, you wrongfully dismissed me, or, whatever argument they're going to make, you've got this contract to say, I followed, here are the steps that you agreed to. Here is the disciplinary process that we followed. Here is the contract that sets out, after these things have occurred, I can then terminate you. So it removes the emotion from a situation. If you have someone who's worked for you, we all have work friends, right? You get close to your staff, and sometimes that just blows up in our face. So the contract removes that emotion from the decision. It gives you a step-by-step process that you can follow, that you can say, this is business, and here's what the contract says. So they remove that sort of people piece and make it more of a legal piece. Anybody want to ask any questions, or I feel like I'm just talking at you? Yeah.
Because that's very informative, Jennifer. Thank you. My question is, can a quote be the contract?
A quote to provide services?
Yeah.
So if they sign it and agree to it, so for example, you provide a quote. I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, F for this amount. And then you have a line at the bottom where you say, I agree to the above and would like you to proceed. Then contracts don't have to be super complicated.
So in this virtual world, or even before virtual world anyways, if the quote requests say, okay, if you want to proceed, then, here's the deposit, the payment terms are there. So if they've emailed back and said, yeah, hey, you're the one that I want, and they've paid the deposit, then would that be considered the signature?
Absolutely. So especially now with COVID, the courts have gotten a lot more lenient and a lot more open. I can tell you, even the insurance companies I work with are accepting electronic signatures at this point. If you want to sort of step it up a little bit, my office uses HelloSign. It's like a minimal fee. I can take my PDF document, I can email it to them. It gives a timestamp, it gives like the IP number and all of that stuff with an electronic signature. But honestly, in my own practice, if a client gives me instructions, I will usually confirm those instructions just by email. This is what we discussed. Right. This is what we've agreed to. I will be proceeding on these terms. If there's any problems, you need to let me know.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks.
The courts are always going to look at sort of the evidence, right? So the most important thing that you've raised there, have a paper trail. Have a paper trail. Do it in writing, do it by email, have something you can print off, even text messages. You can print text messages off and they can be submitted as evidence if you ever run into an issue.
Right. Okay, great. No, that's great. Thanks.
Jennifer, may I ask if you happen to have or have seen or good experience with a program that is very good at downloading a full set of text messages from a phone? Actually, Tom, you might know this too. You're a little bit more tech involved, and Catherine, you as well.
I have generally left that to my clients and said, you need to print text messages off and give them to me. I know, like, I'm an Apple person, so it's quite easy for me. I can print it right from my phone. But I know it's not always that easy. But I had a small claims court case about a year ago, and it was a fun time. It was a ex-boyfriend and ex-girlfriend and fighting over money loaned between them. And he printed off, I think I had 27 pages of text messages between them. So it is doable. I don't know whether, if you have, like I said, if you have an iPhone, it's quite easy. I don't know with Androids, but I'm sure there is some kind of service you can use to print them.
I'll also add that it also depends how many apps across, however many different apps you had conversations between people on. I know that apps like Instagram and Facebook or whatever else allow you to download basically an archive of data that has basically every single chat from here until the end of time. The only problem is that the way that it's formatted is in JSON or JavaScript object notation, which means that you need to find a way to basically parse it to make it look readable. So keep that in mind if you ever have an app that you need to download information from that actually has like an archive option.
Yeah, and the only thing that I need is just text message. Everything else I did by email, but it is text message specifically that I'm looking for. And I've had a couple of recommendations. I don't recall them off the top of my head. Neil, thank you for that one. I'll check out and see what I can find on the Google Play Store. But I have had a couple of recommendations from some people, but a couple of them have been horror stories. Like, hey, I downloaded this app to dump all the text messages, but then it failed and it wiped them all. And so I'm like, well, yeah, like I can't roll the dice on that one.
And
Jesus, I don't
screenshots
blame
work
you
really
for
well.
wanting to.
If you don't have a long text message stream, screenshots work really well too.
Yeah.
It'd be an infinite supply of screenshots. We're talking probably like a year, maybe 16 months worth of communications. Not all of it is necessarily relevant. A lot of it's just kind of chit chat back and forth. So that's the hard part, but at least email is easy. I've already got them formatted, saved in the folder, already done.
I wonder what the cops use. They must have their own whatever.
I hate to find out.
I'll look and see, and I'll see what I can dig up, and I'll let you guys know the next time we chat. And just see if.
Well, I wonder if there's that app that you download to your computer. I have my text message app from the phone that goes on my computer, and I'm wondering if you could just print it through your computer that way. I can send you the link to where I got mine. I don't remember who. I think Lindsay's the one that recommended it to me, but it seems pretty straightforward.
Is it the phone companion?
Yeah, the phone companion. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, we get
that was you.
We get our messenger and our text messages.
Yeah,
they'll pop up just like your emails if you want them to as notifications.
But then you can print out a full, range of messages.
Isn't technology wonderful?
When it works.
When it works. Yeah. When we have tech savvy people to help us make it work.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, Neil. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm on my old laptop, my 10-year-old laptop. My main laptop is down. So I just wanted to add to what Jennifer was saying. I mean, I kind of joined the conversation a bit late, but I gather it's about contracts and, how a paralegal can help people with contracts. But I just wanted to share my experience with regards to contracts, because as a IT contractor, I'm given these sometimes convoluted contracts to sign, and I always get a lawyer to look it over. But I've seen enough of them now that I can pretty much figure out what it is they're asking for and what the implications are. So one of the things that, and maybe it's not something that most people will encounter, but you have to also look at what they're not saying and what they can imply in what they're saying.
Mm.
So for example, one of the clauses that every single recruiter puts into their, or a client that puts into their contract with me is that, oh, this agreement survives the termination. You know, this survives termination. This clause or this section survives termination, and it's usually the indemnity section. So by indemnity, I basically have to, I run the risk of repaying what they've paid me, or there's some sort of issue that I have to, I have to spend money on. And I try to limit the length of that clause. So 12 months after termination. Some of them have said, no, we're not changing it. And then it's up to me to decide whether I want to work with that client or not, because it's from a contractor point of view, it's almost as if I'm giving them an indefinite warranty. Because they can come back to me and say, well, hey, 5 years ago, you built this application, and now, we lost $10 million because of a glitch in it. Well, maybe they had other people working on it, and maybe they caused the glitch, but because I'm still in the game, whoever has the deepest pockets pays in many cases. I see Jennifer shaking her head because you have experience with that. Yeah. And so that's what I wanted to just mention to you guys. Hopefully it will help, that you definitely have to have someone read this over who has experience, any contract who has experience, and don't let anyone pressure you into signing something very quickly. You say to them, no, it's going to take X amount of days for me to have it reviewed. I'm going to think about it, blah, blah. If they won't let you do that, I don't know if that's an organization or somebody you want to be doing business with it, because
it's a red flag.
Very much a red flag. And I was told by a lawyer years and years ago, hindsight is always 20/20. I'm the kind of person that I guess I try to, I see all of the different, I spend too much time thinking about things and see all the different avenues things could happen, good or bad. And, that to my detriment, sometimes, I've given up certain things, but that's okay. Because at the end of the day, I'm not putting myself at risk financially or even and mentally, because once you get into a lawsuit, I mean, that's, and I would also say, be very careful when you enter into agreements with US based clients or companies. They're very litigious out there. And I've seen some crazy clauses there that I said, you know what? I don't want to work for you. I don't care how much you pay me, forget it. If you can come back and sue me after so much, or you can hold back this and hold back, forget it. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, all excellent points. There's a dark side to litigation, and there are big companies that will be able to, they can afford to out litigate you, and they will 100% bury you in legal fees. Absolutely. We are always looking for a deep pocket. So I like to say, in general, I don't sue people. Sometimes someone comes to me, I have a lady right now with this hot tub fiasco, and, it was a sad story. She was a friend of a friend. And so, we said, okay, we'll help you out suing a person. And, she's now about $1,000 in. And I sat her down and said, how much money are you throwing after this? Because we can't even find him to serve him. So even if you win in court, if I can't serve him, what do you think the chances are I'm going to get a penny out of him? So, you got to be careful with litigation in terms of, do you have a defendant who's judgment proof? So litigation costs money. Like, I'm not working for free, right? And you may end up suing someone who is what we call judgment proof. So they have no assets. They've made sure their assets are in someone else's name. They have nothing you can seize. They have no money in the bank. So great. And I'll never forget, many, many years ago, my very first small claims court trial was a dog bite case. This woman was at a restaurant. The cook's dog ran out and bit her. And she had a pretty horrific injury. And we did the trial, we won. And the lawyer I was working for, I was very new. And she said, that was a great job. I hope you really enjoyed your first trial. You can take your judgment and we'll frame it and we'll hang it on the wall. And I was like, why? She's like, well, you're never going to get any money from this grifter cook whose dog bit her face. And it was something she had identified way before I did that we were never going to get any money. She just wanted me to have some trial experience. So she let me run this whole trial. And then she said, we'll hang it on the wall. It's your first big victory. And I was like, it's not a victory if we're not getting paid. So these are all like the realistic considerations. And like I said, you get into big companies, and especially as Neil had mentioned, in the US, it's very common. They'll bury you in motions. They'll bury you in legal fees. You'll never afford to out litigate them, and they'll just keep coming at you with legal fees until you give up or you're bankrupt. So that is a reality of the sort of the underbelly, the dark side of litigation, for sure.
So I do have a question. And the question is about those amazing websites where you type in, I need a contract for whatever. And they go, oh, here's a bunch of templates that you can just take and plug in your information. What's your view on those types of contracts? If you have some legal experience, you may be able to sort of weed through those terms and those things, and you may be able to put something together. I would suggest, if you're going to do that you take that document you've drafted and you have a lawyer look at it, because you don't know who wrote that. It's like I tell my students, Wikipedia is written by anybody. You don't have to have any kind of actual knowledge. So please don't come to me with Wikipedia in your papers. It's the same with these websites, right? You don't know who put that together. Was it a lawyer? Maybe it was. Or was it, a legal assistant who typed it up and said, hey, I can do this. No problem. So the problem with the internet is you don't know what you're getting. You don't know who got it. So absolutely, if you're looking to save some money, you can use those websites, put it together, but I would still strongly recommend you at least have that reviewed by a lawyer who's going to say, oh, you missed a big piece here, or, oh, this is not going to hold up, right?
So I subscribe to. So when it comes to Wikipedia, I have a rule that goes back to college, which is that you don't use Wikipedia, you use the citations in Wikipedia, because all you just need is the information, and then you can kind of just piece things together, and then kind of go along the article and figure out the citations yourself. It's a way to railroad research in a way that feels focused, but still leaves enough room for diversification of sources. Right? Libraries, internet, anything else, right? Or interviews. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know. I always start my students off. I say, listen, Wikipedia is not like it's not an encyclopedia. You can't use Wikipedia. And I remember it was actually years ago, just to demonstrate it. We went on Wikipedia and we wrote a Wikipedia about, I said to my students, go and write and submit it. And of course it showed up. And it was completely fabricated by them. And I said, so do you see now why Wikipedia is not a source? But you're right. Often the sources from Wikipedia can be useful, but I generally tell my students, please just stay off Wikipedia.
I'd like to add.
With the online tools, the other big concern is, are you looking at a Canadian or an American website?
Yeah, that's a big one for me.
Right.
Yeah, because American law is very, very different from ours. So it's the other thing you really have to watch with using online sources are we looking at an American or Canadian source?
Is that province to province or just Canada in general? You're okay.
It depends on the content. So contracts are generally going to be dealt with at a provincial level. So you're going to want to work with Ontario law, which maybe, for example, Quebec is going to be very different than Ontario law. They have their own kind of little thing going on over there. The other provinces are largely the same, like, little nuanced differences, but Quebec would be the big kind of standout. And you'll notice even like contests, right? They'll say not valid for residents of Quebec, right? It's because Quebec's law is very different than the rest of the country.
Right.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Of course.
It's a little bit not about the contracts, but I just want to do a will, and I don't know how to proceed with this. Can I do a will through the website? There's like a will, you can do a will and you don't have to pay. And this is a little bit scaring me if I don't have to pay for the will. If you can direct me, I will be very thankful.
You need to see a lawyer to do a will and a power of attorney. So it has to be done by a lawyer. You can do what's called a holograph will, which has to be entirely handwritten in your own penmanship. But that, the story of why we accept holograph wills stems back to a farmer whose tractor rolled over on him and was dying in a field and hand wrote a will as he was dying. Unless you're in that situation, you don't write your own will. You go to a lawyer. Wills are very complex. We as paralegals cannot touch wills and estates. If you want a will that's going to hold, because the problem is once you've passed away, you don't get to come and say, no, this is what I meant. So it's only that piece of paper that will determine what you meant. So it is very important that that's done properly. So you should always go to a lawyer. You should not use any online tools for that. You should go to a lawyer, pay your, probably $1,000, $1,200, have it properly done. And then, it's stored in their office. They have vaults where they keep them. It's going to stand up in court.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
So to add to that, Victoria, there's another kind of bolt on to exactly what Jennifer said is number one, depending on the insurance company that you hold your life insurance with, there are specific companies that actually offer member benefits depending on whatever company they're with. But there is one in specific. It's called Foresters Financial. Foresters Financial has a program called Law Assure. Now, it was written by lawyers specifically for this purpose, so that, because again, and Jennifer, I'm sure you know this, you'd be shocked at how many people in Canada don't have a will. It would blow your mind. And even in that circumstance, a lot of them don't get it right. They try and go for the cheap method online. When you're spending money on this kind of a situation, this is going to decide what happens to every asset you've ever saved for your entire life. This is not something you skimp on, I'm not saying blow, $5,000 on the thing, but don't be afraid to pay some money to make sure this gets right. Because if it gets done wrong, there's no going back. Because
you're gone.
You're gone.
Jennifer,
Thank you,
you said
guys.
it exactly
Thank
right.
you.
You're not here to argue your own point. So Foresters Financial has a free program that's included as part of having those kind of benefits, number one. And a number two consideration is if you're working with a financial planner or an advisor, consider the type of assets that you have, because not necessarily all assets shouldn't necessarily go into a will. There are ways of creating what's called preferred property versus capital property. Those two things translate, for lack of a better word, transition to whoever you want to accept them when you're gone in different manners.
You can have things pass through the estate and you can have things not pass through the estate.
Correct.
So estate planning, especially if you have a lot of assets, for example, in my will, I have a young child. So I have my life insurance going into my estate so that it can be managed by the estate and it can be held by the estate. So those are decisions that you sort of can discuss with a lawyer or with an estate planner to sort of say, how do I want this structured? And how do I want it to pass? Do I want it passing through the estate or do I want it to pass outside the estate? Because there's lots of creative ways to have certain assets pass outside the estate and then they're not subject to that will.
Thank you, guys. Thank you a lot.
And another one is if somebody has secondary property, you can get what's called a secondary will that has a different set of rules. They work in a little bit different manner. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. Do not consider this to be gospel. This is just what I've learned over the years.
It's a starting point for me to think about that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Hey,
I also, sorry, go ahead, Teresa.
So if I have like a couple different business contracts and they could all be quite different, could I bring them to you instead of a lawyer to look at them and go through them? And then you could tell me this needs to be seen by a lawyer or this is good the way it is?
Yes, so sort of that was what I had said at the beginning of the talk is as paralegals, we're in this kind of unique position in that I cannot review a contract and tell you whether it is good or bad. I can only help you if the contract has been breached and you want to now sue or you're being sued. So,
okay, so
as paralegals, what triggers our ability to be involved is a dispute. So a contract, there's no dispute yet, right?
Right.
So that trigger for us as paralegals is that a dispute has arisen and now we can look at the contract and interpret the contract and give you advice on the contract.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we
and
so we
Teresa-
would have to go to a lawyer to make sure that's a
You
good
do.
contract.
Yeah,
and
Teresa,
then
she
once
actually
it's
referred
breached-
us to, actually referred us to a lawyer which already made a call to.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I
I'm
must
on
have been MIA there. Got those before my coffee.
Fantastic.
Thank
Yeah, but
you.
you know, I love the way that you said that. I mean, basically, you're supposed to look at each part of what you're looking for, because how many people just think I'm going to throw together a contract, but they're not actually thinking about how that client gets onboarded and what they want to get out of that, and how they resolve, letting that customer go, or the end of the contract, and how things get wrapped up at the end, and that you have to think about that and make sure that it's outlined. So, yeah, good points.
Yeah, and what's going to constitute a breach? And if a breach occurs, what's going to happen? What if you've done 50% of the work? What if you've done 20% of the work? At what point are you going to terminate the contract? What allows for termination? What kind of behavior? What kind of actions allow for the term? Like, you're always with a contract, you're trying to think of every potential eventuality, everything that could go wrong within this relationship that you're creating with the contract. You're trying to think about that and write it in and sort of plan for, if this goes wrong, then what? If that goes wrong, then what? How do we address these things?
Yeah, because it always feels good at the beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's always sunshine and lollipops when we're signing up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So listen, we're going to transition into the networking part, but Jennifer, if you don't mind, I want you to be the first person to put your contact information in the chat window so everyone can reach you, and of course everybody else can do the same. We're just going to quickly go around. I believe that everybody pretty much knows everyone, but you know what? We all have different needs. So if we can just, we're going to start with Sherry and just say, Sherry, what is it that you need this week? What can anybody help you with? And don't say sunshine, because you've already got it, and it really makes me
what do I need this week? Oh my, more time in my day, but let's be real, that's not going to happen. What do I need this week? So first of all, I'm Sherry Lozier. I am a certified applied neuroscience coach and business consultant. And I specialize in working with people who are ADHD or distracted and disorganized entrepreneurs. What I need this week actually is shares. I need shares online. So if I've posted things on Instagram or LinkedIn, those shares would be absolutely amazing and fantastic.
cool.
I almost said, and this is Sherry, and I'm done speaking because I spend way too much time on Clubhouse. So anybody who's on Clubhouse, connect with me on there too.
All right. Okay. Christiane. And you're on mute.
And I thought about that before. I thought I won't forget this time.
In this conversation.
Anyway, good morning again, everybody. I'm Christiane, and I will make a lasting impression by adding voice to your project, your marketing campaign, or any of your products. What I need this week is I need to do some focus. I owe Lindsay booking time on her calendar. I need some advice from Sherry. We'll deal with that in Mastermind a bit this afternoon. Looking forward to that. And Ivan, I'm coming to you too sometime this week. I need to think through how best to continue to promote the e-guide and the search engines. I need to understand about that. How do we get that out there so people can find it?
Fantastic.
Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, now that you said that, I realized that I neglected to introduce Maggie. Maggie is the newest addition to our team up here. Maggie, say hi, Maggie. Maggie's on mute, I think.
Maggie M.
Hi. So hi everyone. Like Ivan said, my name is also Maggie. So I'm the new office administrator. I'm going to be working for this great city and my agency. So I'm going to do my best in the next few days to connect with all of you guys, give you guys a quick shout. So keep your phones on because I'll be calling. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm Maggie at myagency.ca. I'll plug it into the chat, and I'll give you my phone number. I'm here, to take some stress off of Teresa and Ivan. So if you guys have any questions, please let's start directing it through me, and I'll get back to Ivan. And I'm really looking forward to meeting all you guys.
Awesome. Yes. And if you want to schedule
Welcome,
some,
Maggie.
yeah. She's a presenter. So soon she'll be running the place.
What are your hours?
And just so that you know, Maggie has graciously offered that if anybody has to book time with me, just give her a ring and she will make sure that I'm not late. That rarely ever happens, right, Sherry? Come on now. But anyway, I don't know what Maggie's seeing, but she says, call her, she'll work it out. Okay, Lindsay, you're up.
Well, I just watched what the weather is supposed to be like this week. So if anybody's got an air conditioner, I'll gladly take it. I mean, that is what I need, because apparently you can't walk into Walmart and buy an AC right now, as it's not essential. So wow. I know. And I was like flabbergasted about that.
Seriously?
But yeah.
It's get a fan.
Seriously.
It's good wrist exercise.
They won't let you buy an air conditioner for real?
No, it's not essential at Walmart.
Oh, that's dumb.
Ridiculous.
How is it not essential?
I
I'm not in that area of expertise, apparently. I'm not a pro at COVID, but seriously. So I may be at the office or sometime this week, or all of it this week, depending on how the weather is. And as far as that's seriously what I need right now. And I do marketing, specifically digital marketing, and I do social media for small businesses.
Lindsay, there's no air conditioning at the office right now. It's hot. It is hot.
I'm not coming.
Yeah. You can't see the beads of sweat. Anyway, Catherine, you're up.
Hi, folks. Catherine Davies. My business is Life's Emergency Training. We're an on-site and blended first aid, CPR, and AED training company. We're here to make professionals' job a lot easier and stay WSIB compliant. My other job, no side hustles here, is as a co-city leader with Ivan. He's taken Hamilton, but I'm taking the little corner of Stony Creek, here to make sure that we can get networking and build this network so that it benefits everybody. I can tell you, doing business with probably about, of course it rings now, six of you, it really works, because I've even gone to second tier. You always say, Ivan, we're all six levels of separation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. So what we need is more business referrals on the site. Start referring businesses so that we can contact them and show them the great system that we have.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Catherine. I love the plug. Thank you. That's great. And yeah, I mean, how many people have connected with people they didn't know 6 months ago and doing business? I love it. I love to see it. By the way, I love our tagline, which is, there's no business like referral business. Is that, anyway, go ahead, Teresa, you're up.
Hi, my name's Teresa. I am the owner of my agency. We're a full service marketing company and a partner in This Great City. And as Catherine said, for This Great City, we're looking for new members to join our network. And for the marketing side, I just need more time with Maggie this week.
That can be arranged.
Yes.
Perfect.
Well,
Okay.
and Maggie's going to make all our customers uber happy.
Awesome. All right, Victoria, if you're available, love to hear what your needs are this week.
Oh, guys, I don't have anything. Thank you so much. I'm looking for Thursday meeting. I really love those ones. It's very educatable and I love it. Thank you for those ones.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and Maggie, what do you need this week? Don't say a raise. Just kidding. Just teasing. Thought I'd throw that out there.
Which Maggie?
Oh, Maggie M. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought she was going to be My Maggie or am I Maggie or something?
Am I Maggie? But yeah, then I thought my Maggie might lead us into litigation. So, so I'm just going to leave it at
We're
Maggie
definitely
M.
going to require a nickname, and you're going to have to stop hiring people that have the same name as someone else in the network. Sorry.
I know. I have to find out what her middle name is.
I see Maggie M and I think of Maggie May, like Rod Stewart song.
Oh, okay. All right, Maggie M. Uh-oh. Are you on mute? What are your needs? Oh, I don't know. Okay, how about Maggie? You, Maggie. So what are your needs?
Okay. Well, for one thing, my wrist to work. I finally got over a bad stomach issue, but now my arthritis seems to be kicking in, and I can barely use my right hand. So that's what I really need.
Considering you're a writer,
help me with that. Especially, it's particularly bad when you have to be a writer.
Yes.
So anyway, which is what I am, a freelance writer. Most of you know that. That and just referrals. But yeah, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this bloody wrist.
We need somebody who gives wrist massages. That's what we need. So any referrals to wrist massages, we need one from Maggie right away. All right,
Anybody
Thomas.
Is anybody in the group a chiropractor?
No, we have no chiropractors anywhere. So
names.
yeah. Definitely need the referrals. Okay, Thomas, you're up.
Hey everybody, Thomas from MLP Technologies, managed service provider for IT, security, and communication solutions for your small business. Our goal is to take technology off your hands. You got enough to deal with as a business owner. Let's take that hat off your head. What I need today or this week, Ivan, I would like to pick your brain at some point. There's an idea floating in my head. I just want to run it by you, see if it makes sense for me. See if that works. Likes and shares on social media would be great. And if anybody's interested in our products and services, feel free to reach out, and happy to have that conversation. So
great. And I would also say, if anybody would like to brainstorm with Thomas about business setup, getting the technology in place, I recommend that too. Okay, Sheila. Oops. Go ahead. You're up.
I actually am just trying to get a restart. I just spent 3 weeks cleaning out my mom's place and downsizing her. So I need 2 more brain cells to restart everything. More like conversation with regular adults. I think maybe that'll be a good start. I'm a shopping annuity advisor, and I basically teach people how to get paid on the money that they're already spending. So if you want to have a conversation with me, that's great. Contact me.
Awesome. Sheila, it's good to see you back. Okay, Neil, you're up. I'm going to pick on you, Neil.
Are you kidding, man?
Don't be shy,
okay.
man.
Okay. I don't know if I really need anything this week. I mean, I have too many other things going on. It's just that I haven't put my photography business in place yet. So, okay. So just to give everyone a background, I've been working in IT for 20 plus years, and 6 or 7 years as a contractor, last 7 years. So that's sort of my primary business, and I take on one client at a time usually. But I want to make a transition into photography, specifically boudoir photography. And if you don't know what that is, look it up, and then you can snicker, later. Ivan knows what I'm talking about. But it is a real business, a real genre of photography that I'm interested in. So for now, I think what I need to do is really sort of build out my portfolio and build out the website, and then start marketing heavily, probably within the next 12 months to 18 months, which I'll be transitioning. I may still stay in IT, but I'll switch it, maybe more photography, less IT to little IT. But that's more or less where I'm at. I mean, if anyone has any questions about photography, you can talk to Ivan or myself, what little I know. And if it's IT specific, especially application development, specifically business application development in the .NET area, that's where my specialty is. So
awesome. Thank you, Neil. Thank you. Okay, Stephen, you're up.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Hello, everyone. And if for this week, I would say I need all of you to join the Wednesday Night Investment Club 2021. As a, just to say hi, just learn a bit more about investing for your future. And what I operate is in the insurance and investment business. So what that does is we're trying to help you secure your financial future with predictable income for life, to tax strategies, tax reduction, especially if you're looking for that bit of a fear factor of securing that fear and putting it under a lid. We've got life and health insurance offerings. And if you want a bit more of a nest egg at the end, we've got that retirement savings plan. So if you need any help with that, just give me a shout and we'll connect and do a bit of brainstorming.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stephen. And Stephen is the acting city leader for Markham. Woohoo! Stephen!
Woo!
Thank you. Welcome.
Awesome.
All right, Sean.
Hey, everyone. Good to see some new faces again and some familiar ones. Hello, everyone. So what I'm looking for this week is, in all honesty, more hours in the day. Because it never ends, right? And I can never play catch up anyway. But what I would be looking for outside of extra hours in the day is if you know anybody who needs just some advice in basic financial advice or some more elevated plans, perfect, we can chat. If somebody's looking for refinance or they're looking at doing a new purchase, home, condo, whatever it is on the mortgage side, I can definitely help there as well. Or just anybody just to bounce some ideas off of that is looking for some advice that doesn't really know where to go. Perfect. I love helping people solve problems, whether it's my expertise or saying, hey, it's a legal problem, you're going to want to call Jennifer, or hey, this is a advertising marketing problem or a tech problem, or right, you're going to want to call this person, this person, this person. I like helping people solve problems and getting those questions answered. So that's what I really enjoy to do. So anything along those realms, feel free to reach out. My contact info is in there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean. Awesome. Okay. And both Sean and Sherry, I feel jealous because you're both outside enjoying the sun. Okay, Frida, you're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm an independent business broker with ACN. I help businesses and individuals turn their liabilities or basically just all their bills into income generating assets while feeding children in the local marketplaces. We've added a identity theft protection that's just launched the last month or so, and it offers a suite of 15 different services to help protect you from the ransomware and different cyber crimes that are out there. Everybody's working from home, but no longer have the protection of the firewall from their parent companies or their other offices. So they don't have those extra protections. So this offers you a suite of 15 different services, and it is phenomenal. I couldn't believe all the stuff that was found on my computer, even after having other services that you pay for individually. So yeah, give me a shout. What I need is I would love to help some people develop a income stream of their own, because this has changed my life.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Frida. And by the way, if you haven't looked at the news lately, Thomas, Frida, there's been a bit of ransomware issues out there, huh?
Yeah, millions of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, tons. Okay, Adam, you're up.
Hi, everyone. So as far as what I need for this week, if someone could find a way to make a 48-hour long day, that'd be amazing right now. Because I got a couple projects that are in the pipeline that I'm working on, and I'm just focusing all of my energy into getting all that stuff done. As for what I do, I'm a web designer and I'm a web developer. So if you ever need any help with building a website or a web app, feel free to give me a shout. We'll make whatever you want to build a reality.
Yes, and I have to say, I'm just plugging you a little bit, Adam. This past week, I had a friend of mine who reached out to me saying, "Hey, my son is learning Python in school, right? So, can you help me out?" I thought, I'll try. What do I know about Python anyway? So then I realized he's really learning Python in school, so I really can't help. And I sent a text to Adam, dropped the link in the text, and within seconds, Adam was on. He swooped in like he had a cape on, and he really just helped out. Like, it was amazing. So like last minute, it was like at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and there was Adam. He was there to help out. So thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate being able to reach out to you like that.
Anytime, happy to help.
Yeah, folks, listen, I want to thank you. I think we've gone a little overtime. Man, 4 minutes overtime, Sherry. How delinquent. So
Stunned that you're running late.
It's shocking, right? Even with Maggie here. Anyway, so I'm just going to say thank you, folks, for coming out. I really want to thank Jennifer. That was really amazing information. I don't even think, I've had to watch the video again just to really get everything. So it's really nice that everyone's questions were answered. Now, if you have any additional questions for Jennifer, please, her information is in the chat. Please reach out to her. She's right here. I know exactly where she is. She's right where we are. So she's
we can arrange a backhoe to block her in. So
that's right.
You could. It's only a couple more inches, and I'm not going anywhere.
That's right. All right. So thank you all very much for coming in. The work group starts right away. If you are looking to stick around for the work group, then stick around. If not, I'll see you next week.
It was a pleasure meeting everybody.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks.
Feel free to reach out.
For everything.
Valuable. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer.
Have a good week, everyone.